Yeah, well, I've read your book, Code Red, which is excellent, and I recommend it to everybody. It's on Amazon, and I share your concerns, and that's why I want to talk about 2022. I guess my first question is kind of tied to that is that mail-in voting does seem to is observable and countable, and do you think that's why Republicans hate it so much?
Wow. I'm not sure. I mean, I think they probably hate it. So, I mean, virtually everything is seen through a partisan lens, of course. So, they certainly could hate it so much because they were of the opinion that it facilitated the vote of the working people, younger people, voters of color, et cetera. In other words, more of the Democratic constituency. They've lately sort of seemed to be getting religion in the sense of realizing that a lot of seniors and a lot of right-wing voters, Republican voters, also vote by mail. And in advising them not to vote by mail, they were making a mistake. They were actually, reducing their own turnout, their own voters' turnout. So there is that element. There is also, some grounds for suspicion that, as you said, with vote by mail, you actually have hand-marked paper ballots of necessity. They are recountable. They're more easily auditable. They're counted by optical scanners as opposed to touchscreen voting machines or created by ballot marking devices. There's less computerization involved, and they can always be, assuming chain of custody is maintained, they can always be recounted. So, there is some sense that in places, for instance, Georgia is one, voters were being pushed to go to the polls and vote on ballot marking devices where the computer creates a barcode of your vote, much more problematic to audit or verify. So that may also have been an element as to why the Republicans, Donald Trump, and the Republicans in general have sort of been on a jihad against mail-in voting. The ostensible reason is that, there's more opportunity for fraud, but until they actually present some evidence of voter fraud, we can, I think, pretty much rest easy that it is a virtually non-existent security problem.
I think that's what they call in statistics overly determined, right? There's so many factors why Republicans would be against mail-in voting. There's like, one, it's countable. Two, more minorities vote. It allows more people to vote. Period. All, they're against greater voter turnout. They're against minorities voting, and they seem to not like voting that you can count. So
yeah, and I'll add to that. I'll add to that that when you force voters to at-poll voting, and especially when you do it with ballot marking devices, the bugaboo with ballot marking devices is that, unlike with hand-marked paper ballots where 50 voters can come in, be handed a ballot, go to a little cubicle or booth, and all be filling them out at the same time, with ballot marking devices, you might have 2-3 computers for a whole precinct, and everybody has to wait online for each voter. And if there are any problems or breakdowns or issues that the voter raises, the line gets longer and longer and longer. So we've seen lines literally a mile long in places like Cobb County, Georgia, places with these ballot marking devices. So if you can drive voters to election day voting at the polls, and if you can underservice the counties or precincts where there are voters that you do not want to see cast a vote, you stand a pretty good chance of driving some of those voters away. They're working people. They have their caretaking responsibilities. They're not wealthy. They can't hire somebody to do those jobs for them. Typical members of the Democratic constituency, and they can't wait online for 6 hours. So they might wait for 2 hours and then leave. When you also ban the distribution of food and water, it becomes more obvious, what the game is, what you're up to, and it's basically voter suppression.